Hello and welcome. I'm your host, author Ryan M. Oliver, and this is the Mighty Books Podcast. This week's featured author is Susie Black. Susie Black was named Best U.S. Author of the Year by NN Light's Book Heaven. Award-winning cozy mystery author Susie Black was born in the Big Apple, but now calls sunny Southern California home. Like the protagonist in her Fashion and Foul Play mystery series, Susie is a successful apparel sales executive. Susie began telling stories as soon as she learned to talk. Now, she's telling all the stories from her garment industry experiences in humorous mysteries. She reads, writes, and speaks Spanish, albeit with an accent that sounds like Mildred from Michigan went on a Mexican vacation and is trying to fit in with the locals. Since life without pizza and ice cream as her core food groups wouldn't be worth living, she's a dedicated walker to keep her girlish figure. A voracious reader, she's also an avid stamp collector. Susie lives with a highly intelligent man and has one incredibly brainy but smart-aleck adult son who inexplicably blames his sarcasm on an inherited genetic defect. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, I have Susie Black. Susie, how are you today?
I'm well, Ryan. How are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking. So today we're here to talk about your book and your author career. What's the book we're talking about today?
The book we're talking about today is Death by Cutting Table.
Okay, and what is Death by Cutting Table about?
Death by Cutting Table is placed in the Los Angeles garment industry. And the story is about a very bad man who took over a company, stole it blind, put it into Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and was murdered.
So what inspired this story?
Regrettably, based on a true story. Well, the guy wasn't killed, but there were a lot of us would have stood in line to do it. But I worked for a company that was on the brink of celebrating 40 years of being in business, a ladies swimwear company. And the boss that I had brought this gentleman in ostensibly to protect him. And instead of protecting him, the guy stole his job by sweet talking the board of directors. Everything that is in the story pretty much happened except for the murder. That was just my fantasy. In case the police are watching, I didn't kill anybody.
Well, that's good to know. I'm glad to hear that. There have been many people who have probably fantasized about doing something not so nice to their bosses. So how long did it take you to write this one?
This one took about 6 months. There were some changes that I made in who the actual murderer turned out to be. So I had to do some backtracking, but about 6 months.
Okay, that's not so bad. How many books do you have out currently?
Currently, I have 3 published books, and this one will be coming out in the summer. And then I have a 5th book coming out on November 15th. So I will have, by the end of the year, 5 published books.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations on that. That's awesome. Are they all mysteries?
All but one.
Okay.
The last one is called Rag Lady, and it is the fictionalized version of how I got into the apparel industry and how the apparel industry led to my writing gig.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's a little backstory and autobiography on you.
Right. It's sort of a prequel at the end. I never really thought that I was going to publish that one. It was a little too personal. And I thought, if somebody doesn't like my mysteries, okay, well, I won't feel better. If they don't like this one, it'll break my heart. So, But the publisher convinced me to go along, and now I'm pretty excited about it.
So kind of a memoir, if you will.
It is. It's a fictionalized version. The facts are pretty much true to form. Again, there's a murder in it. It's tangential to the story, but the person who was murdered actually did exist, but didn't get murdered.
Okay. So now then, other than being an author, do you do anything for work?
I had a very illustrious career as a ladies swimwear sales and marketing executive. And but now I'm writing full time.
I want to write full time too. That just sounds like a very nice way to live life.
Well, it is a joy the writing part. When you're in the zone, time just flies. I think my husband would say, yeah, and she'd only stop asking me, is this funny? Am I the only one who's going to laugh? What do you think of this? Would a man say this? So I think he wants to be my co-writer after a while.
Actually, that's a good question. Is do you find you have more trouble, or maybe it's a breeze for you writing for the opposite sex?
I do. Figuring out how a man would react to a situation, how he would talk about a situation. Would he talk about a situation? But I'm fortunate because I have a husband and a son that are more than happy to help me out.
And from what I heard from or read from your bio, they have definitely the sarcastic and quirky personalities.
Yes, yes. My son, if asked, would tell you that he's not responsible for his sarcasm. It is an inherited trait because he was spawned by the king and queen of sarcasm. And that's a quote.
That's a direct quote. So, what life experience has been influential on your writing?
Well, I actually started out after college wanting to be a journalist, but life had other plans. And my dad needed some help at a trade show when a family emergency arrived. And none of the people he worked for could come to the trade show. So he asked me. And he taught me how to sell in a half an hour, left for 3 days, and said, I'm sure you'll do well. And I thought, well, okay, this is good. And we were both pretty shocked when I had a big stack of orders and he offered me a job. And I became a traveling sales lady selling apparel in the deep South. I lived in Atlanta. I moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta. And life is a circle because I kept a journal my entire career. And all of my stories are based on my journal entries. All the characters are based on people I know. I have been told that there is a real ring of authenticity in all of my books because they can tell that, I know what I'm talking about. I try not to get too technical because if you're not in the apparel business, who cares? But everybody wears clothes and you think maybe they do, maybe they don't.
Nudist colonies excluding them. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that is how I actually got into my writing gig.
Kind of a roundabout thing, but I would imagine you've got some pretty authentic characters because in sales, you meet some interesting people.
You certainly do.
Yeah, good, bad,
You
and the ugly.
do. You are speaking the truth. I have buyers that I still praise, and I have other buyers who I still wish a slow and painful death. And I have done that for them.
And you can read about that in these books.
Yes, absolutely.
That is so funny.
Your followers are going to go, oh my God, he's interviewing a maniac. But I'm really a very mild-mannered person. But it's fun to do it this way.
I've met a lot of people who, to relieve stress or to put down the frustrations on paper, it really helps them out. And it turns out to be some pretty good, compelling stories.
Oh, absolutely. My son is a psychologist, and I tell him all the time, honey, put this in your therapy. Have them write it out. They're going to feel much better.
There's some validity in that. Absolutely. I know I've heard it for years. You write down your frustrations, your anger, you just kind of verbally puke all over the paper, and then you burn it, throw it away, smash it to bits, whatever you want to do.
It's absolutely true. And Death by Cutting Table was especially cathartic because a lot of people got hurt. And I'm still very friendly with a lot of my colleagues. In fact, I dedicated that book to them. And they've all responded, well, gee, too bad we couldn't do it really. And I said, well, this is the next best thing.
Yeah, if you want to live out of jail and eat real food and see the sunlight on a daily basis, more than 1 hour a day, you're just going to have to read a fictional tale about it.
Yeah, I'm 4'9", so I would look really terrible in striped uniforms, It would look like a barbershop full. Got married to a fire plug and had a child. So
I will take your word for it. You were the one in apparel. I was not. So you got 5 books. Do you want each one to stand on their own, or the ones, at least the mysteries, at least? Do you want them to kind of interconnect?
books are written as a series, but they are each one can stand alone. In each book, I make a reference to the past books, and not so much the victim, but the continuing characters in the book. So that if you started on book 3, you really wouldn't have a big leap to catch up. I personally recommend they read them in order because it will make a lot more sense quicker. But in answer to your question, they can stand on their own.
I find that with mysteries, it's kind of the best way to do it is they have a thin veil of connectivity. Yes, the characters were in there, the events, but as you said, they mention it. They might do a brief summary, a quick mention paragraph, half a sentence, whatever, and then you move on. And if you're curious about what that tangent is, you can go buy the book that associate with that event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I write in the first person.
Okay.
And the main character is the me I always wanted to be. When you write in the first person, you got to get clever because you have to be in the room in order to know what's happening.
Right.
And there were lots of times where you don't. So I created a group of women called the Yentas. Mm-hmm. And they are Holly Schlivnick's competitors. And they meet for coffee every day, and they kibitz back and forth, and they answer questions, and they help her solve the mystery. But most of all, they give her information that she might not have the ability to get.
The inner circles, the inner workings there, the mind meld.
Yeah.
So any authors, any famous authors or writers that you've read would like to compare yourself to?
Joan Hess is probably the most influential person in writing that I could name. She had 2 series. I've been compared to Janet Ivanovich, which I thought was very nice. But I learned timing and the use of comedy, the use of sarcasm and being kind of snarky. And most of all, how far you can go because, you don't want to insult people. But I would say that if I had to select one author, it would be the late, great Joan Hess.
I need to read up apparently on some more authors. There's so many good ones out there.
Oh, we could fill up the rest of the hour, half hour with all of them. I would say Lawrence Shames, Donald Lee Westlake. Mm-hmm. He wrote a book called Axe. It's a brilliant book. I give all these people full credit for teaching me the techniques that have made my books successful.
You're going to pull from other places. I've always said authors inspire authors, artists inspire artists, and that's writers inspire writers, however you want it. We are no exception to that rule. We are all inspired by other people's works.
My books sort of don't follow the cozy mystery formula. My books take place in an urban setting, not a little town. My protagonist is not a candy store lady, not a librarian, not a teacher. My protagonist and her cohort are very successful women who manage to succeed in a traditionally male-dominated industry.
They got to be very confident.
Quite. As you can see, I'm not shy.
No, I can definitely see that. It's a thing. Yes. I imagine the amount of wit and snarkiness and sarcasm are pretty high in the books. And I love that. That's just the more play on words, pun, quick-witted reactions you can get, the good dialogue, it just sucks you in and you're like, I want to know more about that person.
Well, there are a lot of authors who say dialogue is really a challenge for them. For me, it's the most joyous part of writing the book. In fact, anybody who knows me and reads my books, they say, Susie, I can hear you and your voice. It's like you're telling me the story. And for me, that is the crowning touch of compliments.
I've always loved the art, and actually not just recently, when I finally picked up the pen again to start writing, because I took quite a long time off just because family life and getting older and whatnot, responsibilities and all that gross stuff.
Oh yes, life does get in the way.
It does. It really does. It's a thing, but you have to make time for it. I found that when I was younger writing, my interest was in the setting the scene, getting everything right down and had the detail, and that's got its place. It's got its place, but you care about the characters. That's what makes the story move, not the wind, not the trees. You know what I mean?
Agree. once you have your characters, the plot kind of works itself.
Mhm.
At least that's been my experience. I don't know about others, but the characters for me are the whole enchilada. I focus on developing my characters and giving them distinct personalities, distinct idiosyncrasies. And by the second or third book, the readers have a really good insight into not just the main character, but into all the continuing characters, because I continue in each book giving them the same characteristics.
And it's kind of cool though, they can actually predict whether or not someone would do a certain act. They can they actually have some foresight. Oh, Billy
Yes,
wouldn't do this, but
right.
Cheryl would do this because of how this past action or how they speak. And so it's interesting. The one thing we have to make sure we don't do is do something that is so beyond out of character for a character. So like if someone's very docile and they're all of a sudden at, a rave or something, like, whoa,
Right.
what happened in the middle there to make him change so drastically? Or you get my point. And people can get disjointed, like that doesn't make any sense. Why would he do that?
You're right. In a manuscript I'm writing now, one of the Yentas is not one of the most aggressive people in this particular plot. She's going to help Holly Schlivnik get the goods on who Holly thinks is the murderer. But this rather docile person works for the murderer.
Okay.
And is not too happy with him.
Yeah, as long as you've got a good backstory and you have the reasons why, it all is fine.
Right.
But there's that drastic turn. I've seen some people just get turned off from certain characters because of what the writers usually it's mostly in like television, but sometimes in books. What was one thing that was most surprising to you while creating your book that you learned?
In terms of writing the stories,
You can do writing the stories, and publishing if you like.
in publishing, let's go with that. I had absolutely no idea how involved authors are compelled to be in marketing. And as a seller, I can tell you it is not a benefit to be a seller when you have to market, because they are not the same thing. And in my world, I sold to big box stores. You go to Walmart, you're selling like 1,000,000 units. In publishing, you're literally selling each book to an individual reader. I could take my son's old little red wagon out and go door to door and probably be more efficient at times. But that would be my biggest surprise and honestly the bane of my existence. But I don't know of another author that says, "Oh God, I love marketing. It is cool."
Yep. Most of the guys and gals I talk to have the same thought process. Some are marketers, and that's just like there are a couple who have marketers in a previous life, and it's just their natural thing to do. But they were trained on it for 20, 30,
Right.
40 years.
Of
And a lot of the
course.
authors I talk to, their joy is their stories. Their joy
Absolutely.
is to sit down and write, think, come up,
Yes.
brainstorm, because that's what I love to do too. The marketing is a bear. And we were talking about box stores. People come to you and you
Yes.
sell them
Yeah.
stuff. They come there with a mindset to buy. When you're selling your books, you
Right.
have to find them, and then they have to be interested in reading, and then that
Right.
particular genre. So you've got multiple steps you've got to hit before you can even make a sell.
That's true. And not only that, in my world, once you ship the goods, you're done.
Yeah.
It's up to the store to market the goods, not in publishing.
No.
That was my biggest surprise right there.
Yep.
The fact that I wrote the book, we published it. They don't have me place it. They do that. Frankly, there are lots of places that they don't sell to that I can't understand why. They
Just
didn't
make it
ask
easy.
my opinion. They don't want my opinion. So, but the marketing, oh my God, yowza.
Yowza's right. I found just in the year and a half or so of doing this, it's the more people in networking, it does help a little bit, because you
Yes,
can rely on the other person for advice, resources, different venues you can be a part of to sell from. So, and if you do it as your joy, you love doing the stories, you love
right.
selling it when you
Right.
get the opportunity to, and you still don't sell some, but you're still having fun. That's kind of where I'm like, as I'm still enjoying myself. That's really what matters.
I would agree. The one thing about my sales that did help is in trying to figure out what marketing ploys to use. Now, in my world, you do the most amount of business in the least amount of time. That is what your goal is. And I find that, tip my hat to you, being on interviews like this or going with bloggers, you reach a wider net of potential readers at one sitting.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of social media. I mean, I honestly, no offense, I think Twitter is the silliest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. The only thing I've ever found is I joined a lot of Facebook book clubs.
Yeah.
And those are serious readers who actually buy books. So I really have been very selective in what I pick, because otherwise you'd go crazy.
Mm-hmm. You do. You just have to kind of, come to terms with you're not going to be able to be the most amazing marketer there ever was, because after that, because marketing is supposed to be either free or cheap. Advertising is expensive, and
It is.
who realistically has that to just start spending money willy-nilly? You don't need to do that.
And again, when the publisher respectfully is getting the lion's share of the royalties, but is not putting their hand in their pocket to help you,
Right.
let alone to even lift a finger to press a button to help you, respectfully, I'm not so excited about spending a king's ransom for something that they're going to get the biggest benefit of. I mean,
Right.
I get things from BookBub all the time. Wouldn't you like to buy an ad? I don't know if you ever went on their site and saw and see what their ads cost, but I'd have to sell a kidney.
Maybe a kidney and a half. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to be very selective, and I find that what's worked for a lot of authors who I would deem them as successful. Maybe they're not nationally known, but they're successful because they target the local community, and
Right.
they just get to be well known in their area. And then joining networking groups is great.
Mhm.
Getting your name, just getting your face out there and talking. It's going to be a slow grind. It's going to take more time to get more notoriety. And then one thing that's kind of a hindrance, it's a beautiful thing and it's a damning thing at the same time, is we live in an age now where pretty much anybody can become a published author, whether it be by traditional or independent. Independent has taken the world by storm. If you want to write something and it can be great or it can be trash, you can get it out there. And then that person, it's just so flooded with books, it's just hard to make a name for yourself in this market.
You have really hit the nail on the head. It's very hard to wave your hand and say, hey, me, you got to pay attention, when there's a million other guys out there doing the same thing.
Right. And that's why I say I hit home. It's like, if you're doing this, it's because you get joy from it. You enjoy it.
Yeah.
The family members, friends enjoy it, because at the end of the day, at the end of your life, that's what you're going to remember is I had fun doing the things I love doing. I put it out in the world for people. If they get a chance to consume it, awesome. So
you're absolutely right. I mean, the first time that I saw my debut novel posted on Amazon, I'm not ashamed to tell you, I cried. I did. It was a dream come true, a lifetime goal successfully achieved, and I was pretty proud.
Yeah, it's a very proud moment. It's a very proud moment. We all get that kind of awestruck moment. People react in different ways. People will get teary-eyed. I was just stunned silent. I've had some people said they were running around like crazy, 5-year-olds around the kitchen, just enjoying, like, however you react. It's just a great feeling of that accomplishment. So
there is no other than holding your child in your arms for the first time. I can't really think of another moment where you get a rush like that.
Yeah, you created a mind baby at this point.
Oh my God, I love that. Can I use that? A mind baby.
You can absolutely steal that. Steal it away. You created a mind baby. All right, I'll make that the notable phrase for the interview. So how do you select the names for your characters? Do you use real people's names, or do you deviate?
I take a version of their name. So let's say that the The real person was Doug Arbitman. I make him David Workman because Workman in German is Arbitman.
Oh, okay.
Or if the guy was Quirky Newman, I made him Mr. Oldham. So it's a little inside joke for me or anybody who knows these people, but nobody else really figures it out. But they are all based on people I know. Like if the real person's name was Joy, I made her Hope.
Oh, okay, okay. So little synonyms with that there. Maybe
Right.
an attribute of their last name or an attribute of their personality into their name.
I play around with it. Actually, naming them is part of the fun. I also try to make it commensurate with the personality of the character.
Getting the names down is always fun. I always did it as I found older, because I write fantasy. I find, and I kind of place it like an older ancient times, setting, whatever, swords, bow and arrows, that kind of thing. I take old names and like a big events or maybe a part of their character, their personality. I will find the name that suits them. Like, well, if they're a bitter person, I think I've got a character named Mara, and that means bitter in a certain language. And then you've got my main character.
Now, see, I think that's a very clever way to go. I might have to steal that from you.
Go ahead. Like I said, it's fun. I like sharing stuff, and it's just like things like that. I've all the all the characters, the protagonists, all the good guys. They have more invigorating, inspirational names, I guess you'd call it, or like an element maybe. And all the antagonists have, darker, sinister names that actually mean something.
That's very, very clever.
No, thank
very
you.
Clever.
Thank you. I love the meanings of names and words. It's just always been a fantastic, subject for me. It's always interesting. Language is really cool to me. I gotta say, your cover is very interesting. Can you go into how you developed the cover?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, the publisher fought me tooth and nail because they, number one, they don't like graphics, and I explained to them that for this genre, every book is a graphic. It's not a picture. I live in Southern California and go to Mexico a lot, and the skeleton is actually a takeoff of the Dia de los Muertos.
Yes, it is.
And my book covers try to give the reader a hint about what the story is about. So if you look at the cover of that book, you'll see where the victim was killed, how the victim was killed. But I always tip my hat to the swimwear industry by always having the skeleton dressed in a swimsuit. And in one book, Death by Surfboard, the victim was a man. So we put a men's swimsuit on him, and I had a little fun with the covers. The covers put the books on the map. I've got to be honest with you. And I've never thought that a skeleton wearing a bikini would get the kind of play it did. But so for one book, I had a contest to name the skeleton. And Ryan, I got like thousands. I thought, oh my God, what have I done? But I was able to finally get the name, and I actually gave the award to a few people, like if they gave me the middle name or the first name. And then for the third book, where the skeleton was a man, I said that the lady skeleton now has a boyfriend and she wants him to have a name. So it was a lot of fun, and it got a fair number of new readers because I put it on my Facebook book clubs, and boom, bing, oh my goodness, I had to create a spreadsheet to remember them all. It was hilarious.
Well, that's cool. That's a unique way that's actually a great way of marketing your books too. So, because that was the one thing that was striking was you have the table in the back, and you can see where someone got killed,
Right.
but that doesn't draw your attention first. The first thing you see is skeleton wear a bikini. You're like, okay, this is obviously going to be a murder mystery, and it's got some spunk to it. So it just screamed like I don't know what you like, horror comedy, mystery comedy mystery, however you want to put that. Open it, look at the back.
I have had a lot of readers tell me they found the book cover so intriguing they bought the book just to see what was inside.
Yep. Yeah. So judging the book by its cover does actually help the authors. Just
Oh,
we can put
in
that.
my particular instance, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it
So
really does.
the publisher doesn't argue with me anymore. Whatever I come up with, because I couldn't draw a picture to save my life, but I give them an extraordinarily detailed rendition of what my vision is and why. And
Great.
they're logical. Again, sales come through, and okay, here it's going to tell the story.
Yeah.
Trust me on this. Oh yes, ma'am, we will.
You only have to prove that you're right once, and then people start to listen.
They were stunned, absolutely, utterly stunned.
Oh, good. I'm glad they were
It's kind of
stunned, and
fun.
I'm glad this
Gotcha.
is. Yeah. Ha, this is gonna work. Listen
Exactly.
to me now. Yeah, that's amazing. Now with all of your awesome books coming up, I imagine you can see your life in, let's say, about 5 years, your authorship in 5 years. What do you see yourself doing? How many books are out? Are you a New York Times bestseller? What are you doing in 5 years?
Well, I first of all, I want to knock Janet Ivanovich out of her perch. That would be thrilling. I don't think she's losing any sleep yet, but I'm coming.
Okay.
For me, I have a vision of a series prequel where the protagonist, Holly Schlivnik, is in high school. And she's a reporter on the school newspaper and discovers murders. And she'll have like a junior version of the Yentas. And in 5 years, I think that I've got a few more series in my head that I'd like to play around with. But I would like to have the ability to really do whatever I want with my books. I think that I've heard that once you have 5 or 6 books out there, your recognition level goes sky high.
Oh,
We're
okay.
going to test that theory, but in terms of 5 years from now, I should live and be well. I think that I would like to have name recognition, and for me, the sign of success is when a reader would tell me, "I stayed up all night. I couldn't go to sleep without finishing your book." In 5 years, if I can establish that, I'm a winner.
High regard at that point. So people can have opportunities to get to that point where they're reading, at 3 a.m, can't put a book down. How can they get
Right.
a hold of your books?
Well, in terms of stores, they can go on virtually any major book retailer. You can go on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iBooks, Google Play for Books, Kobo. They can go on Goodreads or BookBub. They can go to my website. They can email me, and I can certainly direct them. I think I've given you the contact information there.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the main places. In fact, in terms of other countries, my books are on Amazon in every country that they sell books in.
Well, that is great. Guys, go get some books. Go get some awesome mystery books / comedy. I'm going to call it probably comedy books because the sarcasm that I can read just in your bio along just from talking with you, I can tell there's some good content there.
You're going to laugh. Any reader that opens a book, it is a definite mood enhancer.
And we all need natural mood enhancers nowadays, especially if you're living in Washington with the gray weather that we have here 9 to 10 months out of the year. We're heading into the blue season where we actually have blue sky for a change. So, but definitely something to go look at. Well,
I live in the desert, and it's 6 months of heaven and 6 months of whose stupid idea was this?
Yep. Yeah. 115 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer and, nice and beautiful 70 degree the rest of the year. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're whistling Dixie.
My goal in the summer is to stay inside until Halloween when the celestial light switch turns. And on November 1st, miraculously, it turns gorgeous.
There you go.
You can almost, yeah, it's very strange.
That's funny. Well, Susie, this has been very, very awesome. So thank you so much for taking time out of your writing schedule, publishing schedule to meet with me today to talk about your book.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. And then when you get some more books out, because I know you will, we can definitely do this again and keep helping you promote more and more of your series.
Well, thank thank you. That is a very generous offer, and I will absolutely take you up on it.
Good. I look forward to it. All right, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this. Go get some copies of her books. Enjoy them. Laugh a little, live a little via her quirky mind. I think you guys would really enjoy them. Okay, guys. As always, stay mighty and keep reading.
Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.